So we're going on and through the organs of sense and the sensory nerves and such, and we're on chapter 8, and we're in the last section, and the second part of the last section, section 5, is on the eyes, the organs of vision. And so you can really get into studying the eyes, because there's so many magnificent parts of our eyes, and how we can really see is such an amazing feat that we can't even imagine. So studying the eyes is it's actually pretty fun, because you can just smile and think, wow, God, this is amazing that you gave us these eyes to see. The organs of vision, being the eyes, and we're going to start really the eye and the organs of protection. We're going to talk about protection here, right? Let's push this up and you're going to see the eye right there too. So the organs of protection. So first of all, we have the eye socket. It's pretty amazing that we have this eye socket that provides protection with this heavy bone around our eye to protect it. And then we have an eyelid. And the eyelid there, as you can see, what does the eyelid do? It closes like a reflex and blinks to keep foreign objects from entering into our eyes. So we have this blinking that God's given us. And this blinking also does some amazing other things. It cleans the surface of the eyeball and keeps our eyeball moist so it doesn't dry out. And it distributes this moisture through tear glands. And these tear glands would be called lacrimal gland. So here's where our tear gland is, right up here above your eye. So that's where the tear gland, and then when you blink down, it brings in this fluid from your lacrimal gland there, your tear gland. And these produce tears when we cry. You can imagine, I don't know why our emotions cause these tears to flow, but they do. And they're located under our upper eyelids on one side away from our nose. So you always know they're not right here in the middle. Although our tears, our lacrimal sac, how does it get over there? Basically coming through this here, getting into our lacrimal sac. And so then we have tears coming from our eyes, right? Tears are 90% water, and the other 10% are electrolytes. The electrolytes are, what do we have? Sodium and potassium electrolytes, which make our tears salty to the taste. They also have something that's really cool. They have an enzyme, and this enzyme is called a lysozyme. And what it does, so tears, when they come out, not only that, they destroy bacteria in our eyes. And so when we cry out and stuff, it's actually a good time is destroying that bacteria, unless we have a bad infection. And lyso means split, so it breaks these chemical bonds in the cells of the bacteria, so that we can have our eyes free of infection. So we have that. You see how the lacrimal duct goes down here, lacrimal sac. These all have to do with tears. Now we're getting on to more of the eye structure. Well, let's talk about the eye movement first. How does our eye move? Here we have the extrinsic muscles of the eye. So how does the eye move? The extrinsic muscles, there's actually 6 pairs of these muscles. You can see where these muscles are here. And they move the eye right to left, up and down, and tilt the eye right or left. So they're tilting, and they also allow the brain to keep the eye level when you're tilted. So when you tilt your head, your eye wants to be leveled out. So these muscles level out your eye so you can see. And they're very well coordinated with both eyes, because how amazing that when one muscle turns, the other eye muscle turns too. So both of the eyes want to turn. So this only has one eye, but the other eye is going to do exactly the same thing. And so our muscles correspond to our brain, so that our eyes are working together to turn up or down at the same time. Now, in some children, they have a problem with this. As they grow older, they do, but some young children have a problem. One eye is not turning the same way as the other, and you have problems in areas of, the eyes being out of whack, And so, which is, it's actually, it has to do with your brain, the brain, part of the brain that has to develop in children to be able to do this correctly, especially tiny infants. So eye structure. So anyway, let's look at this right here. We got the inferior oblique, inferior rectus, superior. See how they put these as for our eye muscles. So let's go on to the next page here. Okay, now we're going to be talking about the structure of the eye, right? So let's go up a little bit. I was going to go down. Let's go up a little bit so you can see the whole thing. This is quite a picture, huh? So eye structure. The outer part of the eye has 3 layers of tissue. The 3 layers of tissue are the sclera, the uvea, and the retina. So here we can see where the sclera is. This is one layer of tissue, the sclera. The sclera is the white part of your eye, right? And then we have, if they have in this picture, the uvea. I don't see it labeled here, but the uvea is the middle layer, which contains the iris, the ciliary body, and the choroid. So the choroid's right there, so this would be part of it right there. And then we have, let's go on, this is the sclera, the choroid, and the retina. Actually, the choroid is the uvea. So sclera and then the retina, these are the 3 different layers right there. So the retina is the innermost layer of your eye. The sclera, let's talk about the white part of your eye. This is the white part of your eye right there. That'd be the white part. This is this white part. Is a tough white layer of tissue that provides protection and support and for frame of the interior of the eye. And so that's important. Then we have in the midst of this first layer where the sclera is, if we go where the sclera is down here, you can see the sclera coming around this area. As the sclera comes around here, we have some other parts that are involved in this sclera area, and one of them there would be the cornea. So here we have coming around here. This is the front where your pupil is. The sclera comes to here, and then you have the cornea. And the cornea in this first layer is this transparent portion. The area which light enters the eye is called the cornea. The sclera points to this optic nerve that lies in your eyeball then and bends with the covering of the optic nerve, which basically means here we have the cornea coming down this way. Have you ever had someone say you have a injury to the cornea, like we get a scratch on your eyeball? That's the cornea, and that's that area, and that's the area that light comes through. It's a clear area. And so the cornea, and then you have the optic nerve, which is over here. The optic nerve here, this whole thing is the optic nerve coming in here, and you see all the nerve parts of your eyes, and that's detecting these things. The optic nerve passes through a hole and connects the thalamus to the thalamus of the brain. So this connects to the thalamus of the brain, the optic nerve right here, this nerve. And this is a retinal blood vessel coming through here, and this is the nerve taking in all this information in basically, not totally all of this information, but the nerve gathering the information of the lens and such as it goes this direction, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So the uvea is the middle layer of tissue, and it's the choroid, or the layer of connector tissue that's rich in blood vessels and provides the eyes with nourishment. So this red area, of course, it's red because it has blood vessels and it provides it with nourishment to keep all of the other vessels nourished and alive and going, right? So on to, let's see, we're talking about we're going to talk about the ciliary body, and this is toward the front of the choroid, and it has involuntary muscles that adjust the lens so that it will focus. So let's look at that, where the ciliary body, right there. See how the choroid, this area, this choroid layer, called the uvea, comes in here. Choroid or uvea, same thing, comes in here, and you see the ciliary body here. That's what we're talking about. So the ciliary body, adjusts the lens so that it will focus, just to see there. So here we have, probably towards the bottom too, but we have here ciliary muscles. These are muscles actually that come in here. You have all the nourishment, but you have this muscle here that's in your eye so that your pupil will react, and muscles, the ciliary muscles. And then we have the iris. What is the iris? The iris is part of the uvea at the front of the eye, the continuation of the ciliary body, which we talked about, and this is the colored portion of your eye. The more pigments you have, the darker the color will be. So we're talking about the iris here. See the color? Looks like they have kind of a greenish color. Here's a blue here, but kind of a greenish color here. But this is the iris, the color of your eye color. So the ciliary body comes down here, that's the muscles, and it goes into this area. This whole area is still in the uvea, the second layer, but we have a lot of different things going on with the second layer here. And then in this uvea, we also have the pupil. Of course, you guys know what a pupil is, the pupil of your eye. It's the center, in the center of the iris. Here's the colored portion, the iris. And the light enters in our pupil, right? And the pupil contracts or relaxes from the brain response there. And so when it gets really bright, the pupil becomes very small because you don't need so much light. When it's really dim, it can enlarge like 30 times larger, so more light can come in when it's darker. And so we have the three layers, remember? We have the sclera, we have the uvea, and we have, now we have the retina. So the retina is right here, is the inner part, this retina area. And the retina is the innermost layer, but also it's the most delicate and most important for vision. And it rests on the choroid and together covers 80% of the eye. So the retina coming all around here, retina. You see this part of the lens is part of onto the retina. So the retina has three layers. So here's the retina, and it's going to have three layers too. It has the rearmost layer, which touches the choroid, and then it has the light sensitive cell layer, and then it has the retinal layer of the nerve cells next to the vitreous humor and the inner layer. So here's the vitreous humor. This is going to be all of this inside the watery part inside there. They call it the vitreous humor, but we're going to talk about that a little bit here. But this whole part here is going to be the retina, and you can see where the lens is too. So the function of the retina is where the light sensitive area of two kinds of cells are there. You have two kinds of cells in the retina. What are these cells? One of them is our rod, long, little, thin cells, 1/100 of a hair thick, and we have cones. So you have rods and cones. So what are the rods and cones? The rods and cones bring in the light, and so we know, so the rods take in just white light. They're not colored. The cones actually are shorter and thicker, but they look like ice cream cones, but they bring in, they're like little prisms of light brought in. Let's see if they have a picture here of the cones. Let's see. Let me go to the next one, see if we can see any cones. Not yet, so anyway, let's go back to this picture here. This is the best picture of here. So we have the rods and the cones. The fovea, what is a fovea? The fovea is not on this here, right? Oh, there it is, the fovea, right here. See that? The fovea. The fovea of the retina, see how it's in the retina, on the inner layer is the retina. And it's the light sensitive area in there. The fovea is a small depression, which is very densely packed with cells. So not only as for the light sense, the clearest vision you're going to get is right here on the fovea. You see how the vision's coming through that fovea. So, and it has a much higher concentration of color cones and such, so you can see that area really brings in the sight of your eye. The light sensitive rods and cones are not connected directly to the optic nerve. Here's the optic nerve, but rather they signal the rods and cones into sophisticated image, pressing the circuits in the layer of the retina where the networks of the interneurons process the image to reveal motion, distinguish color, and enhance contrast. Then relate to the visual centers of the brain via the optic nerve, which is a bundle of nerves, each of which carries the impulses from a specific region of the retina to the brain. So what a great process. So here we have, in the retina, you're going to have these little tiny cones and little tiny rods that are bringing in, they're photosensitive, so they're bringing in these pictures of light and how it goes on, and how from going down to the area, to the fovea, down to this area of the optic nerve. So, going on, well, what is a blind spot? Well, a blind spot is a point on the retina where the optic nerve leaves the eyeball. At that point, there are no light-sensitive cells. So the blind spot, right here, is where the blind spot is. So there's no light-sensitive cells there, and that's where the retina has left. See right here? Boom, boom. The retina's up here, the retina's down here. This is the blind spot where there's no retina, okay? The optic chasm is where the optic nerves curve inward and meet at a point beneath the hypothalamus. Some of the nerve fibers cross over to the opposite side. So you have the optic chasm. Let's see. Let me go on to the next, see if it talks more over here. The structure of the retina here. Let's leave here for the retina. So the optic chasm is just another, but anyway, the right hemisphere from the left half of the field of the view of both eyes, and then the left hemisphere signals the right half of the view of both eyes. So it's kind of weird. Just think of the right hemisphere goes to the left of the field, and the left hemisphere goes to the right of the field when you're viewing. And then you have the optic tracts, and those are where the optic chasms, they are grouped into the bundles and they pass around the thalamus. The thalamus is part of our brain. That's where the brain is sensing it. And so just before they reach the thalamus, they stimulate other neurons to complete various visual reflexes as pupil size, turning eyes. So before they reach the thalamus, all of a sudden you have all these things going on with your eyes even before they go to the brain. They're turning the pupil size, they're turning the iris, and all these movements happen. And then from the thalamus, you get the synapse of the fibers. Basically, these neurons are bringing in millions of impulses into your brain, and these specific nerves are recognizing the shapes and outlines and all these things and colors and such on your brain. So, wow. So here we have a cross section of the retina. Oh, here's what I wanted to show you. The rod cells and the cone cells. See, the rod cells are shaped like rods, and the cone cells, the optic discs are like cones. And the rod cells and these are positioned. See where the eye is, the incoming light is coming in here. And as your incoming light comes in, it's coming through, the pupil of the eye, coming to the lens there, which the lens is reflecting it such, going back and receiving down here the information, and this is your nerve. So, it says a cross section of the retina. We have the optic nerve, the image processing circuits there of all these neurons, and you come in these light sensitive rods and cones. And these are the rods and cones here, right there. So let's talk a little bit about these rods and cones, okay? So the purpose of the rods, of course, we knew they have a substance in the rods. It's called rhodopsin. What is rhodopsin? Rhodopsin is the substance in the rods that absorbs light, absorbs these photons of light, and it consists of a molecule derived from vitamin A. So if you don't have enough vitamins and you don't have vitamin A, it's very important, because you may lack being able to see correctly, because rhodopsin needs vitamin A. And so rhodopsin is the substance of the rods that absorbs these lights, and it consists of this protein in suspension. It is struck by a photon, and it's twisted into a new shape and activated into this new shape to emit a nerve impulse. Then after it gets this nerve impulse with this photon, the rhodopsin can be signaled by a single photon. And so, but only the rods only can see in shades of gray. But seeing color, those cones, they're activated by another chemical that's similar to rhodopsin, and that they act at different wavelengths, so they can pick up different wavelengths of light from red to blue to green, because we actually see in primary colors, but these colors combine into secondary mixing colors so that we can see all the different colors, that are around us. Isn't that spectacular? How can you even think of putting this together? So here's the cell with the nucleus down here, and you have this rod cell, and it's getting in the different shapes that we can see and it needing vitamin A. Then we have the cone cell and doing this. The persistence of vision is there is about 1/10 of a second delay when we get when light strikes our retina. There's like 1/10 of a second delay, and so our brain receives the signal, but it persists, and that's why it's like a motion picture. You'll see a whole bunch of different little visions, and then all turn into a big movie of movement. So it persists in the retina about 1/10 of a second after the object is gone. So even though the object is gone, 1/10 of a second, our brain, our retina is seeing, and since it's on there 1/10 of a second, we can see in movement, like a picture going on and everything going on in our vision, kind of like you would do with a motion picture. See 24 pictures that go really fast, but it looks like it's all moving. So similar, that's for sure. That's the persistence of vision, that our vision takes a little while as our retina is still on our retina. So let's go on to the next here. Let's see. I'm going to keep going, even though it might be a little longer video, but let's finish this. So the purpose of the rods. Okay, here we go. Maybe I should stop and go on to the next video and we'll finish it up, because it's going to take longer than I thought.